Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another edition of E.W. Jackson for America. I was not with you live yesterday, but I hope that you saw my Good Friday message. And it was primarily about forgiveness, which is extremely important. It's something that I practice and every Christian must. So I hope you caught that. I was at Regent University yesterday speaking to two classes in the leadership department of Regent, a class on religion and leadership, and sharing some of my leadership lessons and experiences with two classes of students. I never miss an opportunity to talk to young people because I really believe it's important to pour into them because they are the future of the country. So that's where I was yesterday. And want to thank Regent University and Professor Robert Heron for the opportunity to visit with them. So it was great. I want to start with something that I don't want to spend a lot of time on, but I want to comment on it because I just think it's worth it. I don't know whether you've been following the story of Shannon Sharpe. Shannon Sharpe is, I guess he works for ESPN, but he's an ESPN commentator. He used to be, I don't know whether he's still on with Skip Bayless, doing, what was it, they needed First Take after Skip Bayless was on with Stephen A. Smith and left to go work for Fox, and I guess did... First Take was Stephen A. Smith, wasn't it? Yeah, I think Stephen A. Smith was First Take, and then I forget what Skip and Shannon called this program. Well, they brought on, what's this kid's name, from the boxing world, who I didn't realize it until he started on the program with Stephen A. Smith. This guy, it was a confirmed profound leftist, and I stopped watching. I could stomach Stephen A. Smith a little bit, but once this guy joined him, and both of them, Stephen A. Smith is a leftist. He just has some moderate tendencies, and he tends to try to thread the needle a little bit more than most leftists do. But Stephen A. Smith is a leftist. He's a leftist, and he's a race man. So I started watching Skip Bayless because I always liked Skip Bayless, and I didn't know Shannon Sharpe at all. Well, I had to soon stop watching Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharpe, their program. Let me see, what was there? Those of you who are sports fans will know what their program was called. It was sort of a takeoff, wasn't it? Undisputed. Yeah. Oh, so it was called Undisputed. Yeah. That wasn't a takeoff. So First Take was Stephen A. Smith and Skip Bayless, and they went to work for Fox and did Undisputed. But at any rate, I quit watching because it became clear to me that Shannon Sharpe was a degenerate and that Shannon Sharpe was a racist, that Shannon Sharpe was a confirmed leftist, perhaps worse even than the other guy. It'll come to me, who took over when Skip Bayless left, took over with Stephen A. Smith. He didn't last either, but I became so incensed trying to watch that program, and I watched it mainly for the sports commentary. Like I said, I've been a sports fan. I'm no longer a professional sports fan because I really think professional sports is doing a tremendous disservice to the culture of our country. But at any rate, the icing on the cake came. That's the wrong way to put it, perhaps. But the final straw came. The straw that broke the camel's back came. When they were talking about a trade, one of the players, whose name escapes me, but he was trading from one team and going to the Golden State Warriors. Who was he playing for? But he was going to the Golden State Warriors. And basically, having been a rival of the Golden State Warriors, Skip Bayless thought, well, hey, it's business, it's money. Shannon Sharpe thought it was some kind of betrayal. And Skip Bayless says, just kind of as an offhand remark, it wasn't part of a deep, profound argument. Just he said, hey, man, it's capitalism, it's America, man. God bless America. And I am not kidding, folks. I wish I could find the clip, but Shannon Sharpe went off because Skip Bayless said, God bless America. He said, don't say that. Don't say that. Don't say God bless America. Don't say God bless America. Don't say God bless America. I mean, God bless everybody, but not God bless America. He was offended by Skip Bayless even saying it wasn't a serious thing. Like him saying, God bless him. It was just kind of an offhand remark, but Shannon Sharpe was offended by it. And so I realized, okay, I can't watch this anymore. I'm wasting my time, and I'm also just getting myself worked up because it just made me angry to see. And basically, he went on to express racial animus toward the country, which again confirmed. So I say, this guy is godless. He's a Marxist. He's a racist. He's an anti-American leftist. I'm not watching this guy. Well, these are my conclusions about him, and I just had no use for him. Pray for him. Needs to be saved because the man is lost. I mean, completely and totally lost. Well, he's being sued by this woman now who's just produced a recent tape in which he said to her, and I quote, among other things he said to her, I'd like to choke you, or I might choke you in public. Black man choking a white woman. And I thought, you know what? I'm not going to comment on the outcome of the case. I don't know. I don't even know whether, well, we know it's true because she produced an audio tape of him saying it. So we know he actually said it. He's saying, well, it's not the way, it was not meant the way it sounds. I think it was meant exactly the way it sounds, because my conclusion about Skip Bayless is that he is a man who is literally obsessed with race, obsessed. I think he's got complexes about the darkness of his skin. I really do. I'm sorry, folks, but I really do. And it's not other people, it's him. Who cares about the complexion of his skin? I think he does. I think he has a complex about it from things I heard him say when I was watching it. Let me leave that aside for the moment and say this. Why do I even bring up sports and why I talk about sports? Because I'm not only interested in American politics, I'm interested in the American culture. In fact, as Breitbart said, politics is downstream from culture, and I really believe culture is downstream from spirituality. So the spirituality of a nation determines the culture of a nation. The culture of a nation determines the politics of that nation. So therefore, culture to me is a litmus test for where we are spiritually. And I really believe that professional sports in America is cultural poison. It's not alone. The entertainment culture in general is, and it's part of the entertainment culture, but it's part of the entertainment culture. But ESPN is also Marxist, degenerate. I mean, ESPN gave, who did they give? Some guy a Woman of the Year prize who claims he's a woman. Recognize him as a Woman of the Year. So ESPN is completely morally degenerate. I think that the whole of professional sports, frankly, is now. And so I bring up these things because I'm concerned about anything that I think is poisoning American culture and is threatening to move us further away from where we need to be to remain the great nation that we've become. And it's not that I think anything's wrong with sports. I don't. I love sports. I mean, I didn't have the talent to be a professional athlete, but man, I certainly enjoyed playing basketball, and I was never a football player, but I certainly enjoyed playing basketball and enjoyed watching pretty much all sports. When my wife and I go on vacation, if there's a team, we stop doing professional sports, but if there's a one of the AAA teams, for example, in a city, and they're having a game, we go see the game, watch a baseball game. We'd love it, enjoy it. So I love sports. I really do. I think sports are great. But I think professional sports in America has become degenerate. Now, having said that, and become, frankly, a detriment to the future of our country. And I think people like Roger Goodell is just, it's just sad. It's a sad specimen of an American. He really is. And there are probably some others too that I won't bother to go name them. But I was thinking minor league. My wife and I will go see minor league games because we just basically gave up on the professional sport with all the flag kneeling and all that nonsense. But let me say this. Please don't misunderstand what I just said. There are some wonderful athletes, Christian athletes, people of integrity, people of honor, who are gifted athletes and are playing in these leagues. And I don't in any way mean to disparage them. I really don't. Butker is a guy that I really like. And there have been a number of others. Some of them have disappointed me when they end up supporting Hillary Clinton or doing some stupid mess like that when I think they're Christians and they violate everything that the Bible represents, everything Christianity represents, and they go represent some degenerate, some reprobate, thinking somehow that they're going to fit in with being a Democrat or being black or whatever. I don't know. But I still know that there are some wonderful athletes, Christian athletes out there. I used to think that the guy who was the big, I've been so away from it for so long, the guy who was a big three-pointer from the Golden State Warriors, I used to think he was a Christian, and he went completely left. In fact, making statements about how important abortion was. And apparently his mother thought about aborting him. And he comes out saying how important abortion is. And I just thought, man, he's supposed to be a Christian too. But Stephen Curry is who I'm thinking of, Stephen Curry. So I just realized, okay, but again, that aside, I know that there are Christian athletes out there who love God, who love this country, who are trying to stand up for what's right, and I applaud them for it. And I just hope that at some point, the awakening that I really believe is kind of going on in our country right now, that's produced people like us and has us stepping out and taking a stand on these issues, that will ultimately envelop these institutions that are really sources of degeneracy. And for example, I was talking to folks at Regent. I think I mentioned to the people. No. I take that back. I was at a men's meeting last night. I had a full day yesterday. Started with classes at Regent, ended up with a men's meeting at my church about the halftime shows that the NFL puts on. It's almost as if they choose the most degenerate, the most depraved, the most filthy people they can find to get out there and put on these disgusting programs that no child should ever be allowed to watch, and say these disgusting things that no human being should ever want to listen to. And this is what they think is entertainment. So again, it's just indicative of where these institutions are. But again, thank God for the ones who are not, the ones who are holding fast to their faith and their values. You got Mark Wahlberg now, who is really taking a stand. He's a Catholic Christian, but he's really taking a stand that moved his family out of Hollywood and is trying to represent decent values, supporting our military, standing up for the country. And I don't think he's spoken up about Donald Trump, because they know how dangerous that is in Hollywood. That'll not only get you blackballed, that might get you killed. which is, again, another indication of just how degenerate the culture of Hollywood has become. But praise God for the ones who are holding fast to their values. And I pray that there will be an awakening in our entertainment culture that would bring it back to the kind of, I was talking to these men last night about The Rifleman, for example. During our fast, I was fasting from certain kinds of programming that I watch, and I was looking for, trying to make sure I was watching only wholesome stuff aside from the news, if I was watching anything at all. And The Rifleman was one of the things that I watched as a kid, and I found that. And I was amazed at how many of those programs were even explicitly Christian themed, mentioned Christianity. It was one scene in which, or one of the early programs in which they're about to buy a ranch, and things have gone wrong and gotten complicated. And Mark, Chuck Connor's, the guy who plays Chuck Connor's son, says to his father, he said, "Paul, do you really think the Lord wants us to have this ranch?" You'll never hear statements like that in media today, in entertainment programs today. God's not even mentioned. Even people in the most horrific of circumstances, even the most dangerous of circumstances, Hollywood never shows them calling on God, praying, "Oh Lord, help us." I mean, it may be rare occasions, but just think about it. I remember that stupid movie by Tom Hanks in which he's exiled on an island. I forget how many years he was there, but 2 or 3 years he was there, and he makes a soccer ball with a face on it, but never once prays, never asked for God's help. And I just thought that's God doesn't exist for them, and they're much more interested in promoting homosexuality and sexual deviancy and gender confusion and all of that. So I just wanted to point out something, and this Shannon Sharpe controversy gave me an opportunity to do that. I don't know how all that's going to play out, and I don't know the facts and all of what happened with him, but it's just interesting that what he's accused of saying is just consistent with the conclusions I came to about him and why I stopped watching him. And the race obsession was one of them, and he's recorded as a black man choking a white woman in public. I mean, that just goes, that almost shows to me almost a sociopath, a psychopath, that he thinks like that. I mean, think about who thinks like that. Man, I was not saved. I've been saved a long time now. I've never had a thought like that. I never. Of choking anybody in public. And this guy's fantasizing about choking a... At any rate, okay, enough said about that. I want to come back to this Maryland case because 2 illegals are now charged. This is another case. And there are multiple cases in Maryland because Maryland's a sanctuary state. You now have 2 illegal alien invaders who have been charged with the murder of a woman that they buried in a Maryland forest. The woman, Lesbia Melith Ramirez Guerra, a mother of 2, reported missing by her boyfriend, illegal alien K.A. Robinson, Alexis Barrera Rosa, also of Guatemala. Well, apparently, I don't know how this happened, but they found the woman's body buried in the woods in Cedarville State Forest. And this guy, Barrera Rosa, was arrested and charged with her murder. His uncle, Rolvin Eduardo Barrera, was arrested and charged with accessory to murder. They're both illegal aliens who came here, of course, during the Biden administration. They've apparently murdered a woman in Maryland. But you've got one official after another headed down to El Salvador trying to bring Abrego Garcia back to the United States of America, and he himself was charged with abuse twice. And he's an MS-13 gang member. He's got all the tats to show it. But they're down there fighting for him. And now you've got another instance of a woman murdered in Maryland by two alien invaders. Now, my question is, how far left is the Democrat Party going to go? I mean, that really is that's my question. How far are they going to go? Because the most popular person in the Democrat Party now, as you know, is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She is the most popular figure in the Democrat Party. And she's a confirmed socialist. She's a communist. I mean, come on, who are we kidding? The woman's a communist. I don't think we've seen the end of it yet. I mean, I think they're going to go further left because, you see, I think they are so deceived, they are so caught up in their own cult-like thinking that I think they think the more they double down, the better it's going to be for them. So here they are advocating for killers, for vicious gang members. Have you been reading some of the stuff that Trende Awagwa does? I mean, they gouge out people's eyes. They cut off people's heads. They do the most heinous things to people. They are a vicious. There's no question that the label terrorist fits. And the same is true for MS-13. They engage in exactly the same behavior, if not worse. And this guy is a member of the gang that they're going down to El Salvador trying to get back to our country. And it really does raise the question, how far are they going to go? And I don't know what's next, but I don't think we've seen the limit of it yet. In fact, maybe we never will. Because you have to remember, the track that they're on is a totalitarian track. I mean, so Maryland is also the place, for example, where, and let's just use Maryland as a paradigm or an exemplar, if you will, of where the Democrat Party is. Maryland's also the place where the Maryland State Education Board has said not only are they going to teach, and by the way, folks, talking about how far will they go, you know, this curriculum they're teaching, where they're asking kids to find the woman in the leather jacket who's supposed to be some kind of, I mean, Judge Gorsuch interpreted it as the woman was engaged in bondage or prostitution. When he said, I read the book, that was his clear impression. The person who was answering questions said, no, that's not true. But why would you tell a child in a book to look for a woman in a leather outfit? And other things, they had children. Look, why would you tell a child, look for the drag queen? And that was apparently in the book. But look, folks, I didn't know this until I read more about it. They were teaching this stuff to 3-year-old children. 3-year-old children. I just asked the question, how far are they willing to go? Again, I don't think there's an answer to that question. I don't think they have yet plumbed the depths of depravity from their perspective. I think they're going to go deeper. But here's just another example. You've got a 3-year-old child with a book that's teaching the child about bondage and about drag queens? 3 years old? Well, look, would it make any difference if it's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10? No, but 3 years old just provides an even greater shock to the human conscience, doesn't it? As you think, a 3-year-old doesn't even understand what you... Look, here again, how far will they go? Maryland, they're using Maryland now. Because look, that's where California wants to go. That's where Maine wants to go. That's where Vermont wants to go. That's where Minnesota wants to go. And all these, Massachusetts, that's where they want to go. You know, they really want to go to a place where all standards are knocked down, all limitations, particularly on sexual morality, all limitations and notions of sexual morality are thrown out. And basically, anybody can do whatever they want to do in following their own lusts. That's really what they're after. I mean, that started in the 60s, right? Sexual liberation. That's really what they're after. And that includes children. See, because from my perspective, any person who wants to and does engage in sexualization of so we're talking pre-K, not K, pre-K. K would be just as bad. But again, pre-K, 3-year-olds, it just causes the brain to go tilt. But anybody who engages in that, as far as I am concerned, should be classed as a pedophile and charged with a crime. I mean it. What are you doing teaching sexual stuff to a 3-year-old? And this stupid book about the night and some guy slaying a dragon, and these two guys then later fall in love and get married. I mean, elementary school children? So when I ask the question, how far will they go? Folks, I don't think there's any limit. And then get this. I said it is a totalitarian impulse because remember, it is God who gives us freedom. And when you rebel against God, you rebel against all truth upon which God has framed, and with which God has framed reality. Okay? So you're really rebelling against reality. So God makes us free. Right? Adam and Eve were free. God wasn't standing over them when they ate the forbidden fruit, slapping it out of their hand, because they were free. They were given laws and rules, but they were free, even when they abused that freedom and broke those laws. Even God acknowledged their freedom to do so, even though they were acting to their own detriment. But the totalitarian impulse, the totalitarian spirit says, we're better than God. We know better than God. And when we say this is the way it should be, we know this must be forced upon people for their own good. Something that not even God does. And so in Maryland, parents say, you want to teach this stuff to children? We want to opt out. Well, when they allowed parents to opt out, what they found was that the classroom was practically empty. And they said, well, you know what? Who do these parents think they are to make their own decisions about what their children can be taught about matters of sexuality? We're going to force them to have their children in these classrooms. So they eliminated the opt-out clause. and said, now your children will be forced to be here whether you like it or not. I don't know what the consequences would be of keeping your child out anyway, but I'm sure they had some consequences in mind. I don't know. Again, I don't know what they would be. We're going to put a parent in jail, sue them bring charges against them for child abuse because they wouldn't allow their children to be in these sexualizing sessions that are trying to teach 3-year-olds what sexuality is from their own, from the perverse view of these depraved people who are teaching them this stuff. So you're abusing your child to keep them away from that? I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's what of course, we know that that's what they're trying in various jurisdictions, trying to say, if you don't allow this to be done to your child, we're going to remove your child because you are a bad parent. That's the totalitarian impulse, folks. The tyrannical impulse, the impulse that says, I'm going to force you to do it, whether you like it or not. Well, that's what a cult always does, right? That's what communism does. And by the way, I may or may not have said this explicitly before, but communism is a demonic cult. So the Democrat Party, just like the communists, is a demonic cult. What is the number one underlying premise of Marxism? There is no God. That's its number one underlying premise. There is no God. Because what does that do? Well, that opens it up for us to do whatever we want to do in the cause of what we define as good. So we can lie, we can steal, we can kill, we can torture, we can imprison, we can enslave, as long as it is furthering the good as we define it. We can do anything we want to do. And there is no God to whom we are accountable. Well, that's where the Democrat Party is. Again, they wouldn't call themselves communists, but they are. They're not members of a communist party officially, but they are Marxists through and through, and that Marxism is communism. So this is why I've said repeatedly since the election of President Trump, folks, it's not over. It's not over. And we can't afford to sit back and rest on our laurels and feel, well, now that we've got President Trump in office, all is well. Because they are fighting him tooth and nail with everything they can muster. Everything from encouraging assassination attempts to bringing injunctions against him in the courts to try to stop any action that he takes as chief executive of the United States government and commander-in-chief. So where are they going to stop? I don't think there's any limit. See, you and I are limited because we do have absolute moral rules that we will follow because God commands it. So we will not lie. We will not steal. We will not cheat. We will not kill. We will not even hate. We're simply going to stand up for the principles that we believe in. Pray for the people who oppose us and fight them tooth and nail, but on the high ground of moral excellence. We don't have to do any of that to defeat the enemies of God. Because the Bible says that the weapons of our warfare are mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds. So we don't have to kill people. We don't have to try to tyrannize people. And again, as the justice has pointed out in this Maryland case, they didn't ask the school to change the curriculum. They didn't ask the school to drop the curriculum. They just said, we don't want to be a part of it. And the school said, too bad. You're going to be a part of it anyway. Even Elena Kagan, I don't know how she'll ultimately vote, but even she said, I think even some non-religious parents might have a little problem with this. I mean, it's like, yeah, just even a modicum of insight, a modicum of common sense made her say, it might not just be religious parents who would object to this. There might be other parents as well who aren't that religious, but feel like that's my job, not the school's, to be inculcating my children with these ideas. I think she's absolutely right. I mean, I don't think you necessarily have to be a Christian. And there's some other groups, some religious groups have joined in. But I don't think you need necessarily to have a biblical perspective or some kind of religious perspective in order to say, but as a parent, I claim the ultimate right as to how I raise my children and the values I instill in them. I claim that right. And I don't want the school usurping my right and doing whatever it wants to do and showing them and teaching them and saying to them whatever they want to say. So, but they're barreling on. I mean, they've taken this thing all the way to the Supreme Court. So that means they have been unrelenting. Think about it. In order for this litigation not to get to the Supreme Court, all Maryland had to do was say, you know what? Okay, we'll give parents an opt-out. But again, their delusion won't allow them to do that, because what they ultimately want is to be affirmed in their right to force parents to do what they don't want to do. Because the idea in a cult, imagine this, the idea of having an empty room when you are inculcating ideas that you are absolutely determined to brainwash people with, and they're not allowing the brainwashing to happen, you can't abide that. You cannot abide that. You've got to force them. So instead of dropping that requirement, they've taken it all the way to the Supreme Court. And apparently, based upon the reports we're hearing, they're going to be slapped down and told you can't remove an opt-out. Look, folks, the First Amendment means you cannot force me, you cannot stop me by force from saying what you don't want me to say or what the government doesn't want me to say. You cannot stop me from saying it. On the other hand, as a correlation to that, you cannot force me to say what I don't want to say. That is just as much a violation of my First Amendment rights as stopping me from saying what I want to say. And in this case, Maryland is trying to force parents to say what they don't want to say, or forcing them to allow their children to be taught and ultimately say what they don't want their children to say. You know, the First Amendment really, folks, particularly the freedom of religion clause and the freedom of speech clauses, are really meant to protect freedom of conscience, which is essential to what it means to be a human being. And it's essential to protecting human dignity. If I am not free to think my own thoughts, if I am not free to have my own convictions, if I'm not free to follow my own conscience, then I'm not free. And the ability to follow my own conscience, since you can't look at me and know what's in there, is my ability to express what's in my conscience. My ability to worship according to the dictates of my conscience. If you deprive me of those two things, what you're really doing is depriving me of my humanity, because you're depriving me of my freedom of conscience. And you know what? I'm convinced the Democrats don't give a rip about your freedom of conscience. Because if you're believing the wrong things from their perspective, your freedom of conscience is stupid, and they will happily run roughshod over it. happily. Whereas me, for example, born again believer in Jesus Christ, as most of you undoubtedly are, I believe that everything else that purports some kind of pathway to God is wrong. Okay? And I've said the only other faith in the world that is not false is Judaism. It is not false. I say it is incomplete because they have not accepted their Messiah, but it is not a false religion. It is a revealed faith given to Almighty God, to the children of Israel, through Moses, through Abraham, and then through Moses. It is not false. Everything else is false. Everything else is false. But I will defend people's right, their right, to follow what is false against all attempts by the government to dissuade them. I personally will try to dissuade them. I don't want my government trying to tell them, well, you can't be a Hindu in America. You can't be a Muslim in America. You can't be a this. No, 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 no. 1,000 times no. Because I know that that is the road to tyranny. And even if it seems to be benefiting me at first, sooner or later, it's coming right back around to get me. So I believe we've got to resurrect and hold high Voltaire's dictum. I may not agree with what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it. Because therein lies the protection for us all. And I will then gladly compete in the marketplace of ideas. My faith in Jesus Christ, my conservative principles, against all comers. I don't need the government leveling the playing field for me by wiping out the ability of those who disagree with me to speak. But see, that's not the way the left thinks, is it? No, 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 no. You don't believe in climate change, you need to be silenced. You need to be deplatformed. You don't believe that homosexuality is right, you believe homosexuality is sin, you need to be silenced. You need to be deplatformed. You don't believe that killing of an unborn baby is a killing. You believe that killing an unborn baby is the killing of a human being, that is sin, that is wrong. You need to be silenced. You need to be deplatformed. You should not be allowed to be heard. You're going to step out in front of an abortion clinic and try to persuade women peacefully, try to persuade women they shouldn't go in. You need to be put in federal prison. See, that's the way they think. A person protests outside of a pregnancy counseling center that's trying to persuade women to have their babies. I don't like it, but I don't want to put in federal prison for it. I'd rather go out there and engage them and say, hey, why do you all hold this point of view? Let's talk about it. I don't want them locked in the dungeon. But that's what the left wants for us. In fact, I don't know when it's coming up, but one of the people who was released from prison for protesting at a baby killing factory was pardoned by President Trump and is now out of federal prison. I mean, just the fact that, folks, it's unthinkable in my beloved country that such a thing would even happen. She didn't hit anybody. She didn't threaten anybody. She didn't try to hurt anybody. She was peacefully protesting. They found her guilty and put her in federal prison. President Trump pardoned her and got her out. She's going to be our guest on our National Awakening Coalition conference call. Let me see if I can find when that is and tell you now which one she's coming up for, because that, folks, I mean, again, how in the world? Well, at any rate, I thought, oh, here we go. Hold on, folks. I think I can get this up. Here we go. Oh, brother. You know, they're getting disoriented. It's one of these stupid situations. You ever do that where you try to save something and it saves it horizontally instead of vertically? But yeah, pro-life activist Beverly Williams, pardoned from federal prison, returned home to her husband and their young daughter. She is home now. Happens to be a black woman. I won't hold it up because it's just gonna show the wrong orientation if I do that. But not that that is relevant, but again, it just goes to show what it means to have a president who could care less about the color of your skin, but cares about the content of your character. And she got swept up with a whole bunch of people, probably of different backgrounds. You probably got people of all kinds of backgrounds put in federal prison because they're protesting outside of a baby killing factory. Well, she's going to be on the program. I started this process trying to let you know when she was going to be on, didn't I? Wow. And I thought, I thought I had a date for when she was going to be on, but I don't see it here. So at any rate, but she is going to be on our National Awakening Coalition conference call. Stand by for that. If you're not on our mailing list, go to standamerica.us, sign up for it, and I'll let you know when she's on, because I can't wait to talk to her and see what this experience was like, and just the thought of your government when you're exercising your First Amendment liberties and you've got a tyrannical government that decides it's going to put you in prison for it. See, how far will they go? Well, here's another example of how far they will go. I've just told you I will defend the right of people to protest against my call to protect the lives of unborn babies. I will defend their right to protest. I don't want them put in prison, but they certainly would like to have you and me put in prison. Beverly Williams, a case in point. How far will they go? I don't think there's any limit, folks, which is why, again, we cannot in any way rest, relax. Trump's got it now. No, 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 no. This is a battle not only for the politics of the country, but the culture of the country, therefore the spirituality of the country, and it's going to go on beyond the tenure of President Trump. I believe we will win it. Again, if we stick with it, we will win it. All right, well, look, that's going to do it for today. God bless each and every one of you. There's so much to talk about, but I'm trying to be a little bit more disciplined in ending this program when I intend to end it, which is about 45 minutes in. But in the meantime, you know what to do. Stand up, step up, speak up, and refuse to back up, because we cannot be defeated if we will not quit, because we are on God's side. God bless everybody.